the chairwoman of the full committee, the Education and Workforce Committee, Ms. Virginia Foxx from North Carolina, and I recognize her for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, although I want to say this is pretty depressing testimony about the lack of action on the EEOC. I'll have to tell you, I am a person who absolutely abhors discrimination of any sort. And to hear the comments made about how the agency we consider most important, I think, in the government and have for a long time, to make sure that we root out individual discrimination. It's pretty depressing. But let me go on with my questions. Ms. Vann, as I said, the primary role of the EEOC is to investigate charges of discrimination filed by individual workers, to fairly and accurately assess the allegations and make a finding. Regrettably, you all testify, and the chairman said in his comments, excellent comments at the beginning, that the backlog at the end of fiscal 2016 was 73,508 unresolved charges, some of them languishing for more than 5 years. We all know the phrase, justice delayed is justice denied. And you discussed the backlog in your testimony. Do you attribute the backlog to misguided policies and practices that can be changed? I think you imply that, or to a lack of resources. Would you say that the emphasis on systemic investigations is the main reason for the persistently high backlog in the last 8 years?
Thank you for that question. I would answer it this way, beginning with your question about resources. I am skeptical that the steady increase in the charge backlog, we've seen an increase over the last 4 fiscal years, is as a result of a lack of resources, as the agency's budget has either been increased slightly or remained flat. I would suggest that a large part of the backlog, the increasing backlog, is a direct result of the agency's misguided focus on systemic enforcement and the resources and time that is required to go into investigating those claims and prosecuting those claims. Now, to be sure, the backlog is not the highest that it's ever been, but in fiscal year 1995, as an example, the agency had over 90,000 charges in its backlog, but that was well before some of the very important steps that the agency took, including implementing the National Enforcement Plan and putting into place the priority charge handling procedures that really helped to address those issues.
And there's a similarity between 1995 and the last 8 years, and that is these were both Democrat administrations. Ms. Vann, you also say in your testimony that the delegation of litigation authority to the EEOC General Counsel with no vote by the Commission in most cases, how this has led to inconsistency in enforcement across the regions. The delegation also makes the litigation program unaccountable to the commissioners who are supposed to lead the agency. How would you address this concern, and would you completely rescind the delegation so that the commissioners must approve or disapprove legislation, or is there a mechanism you could see that would make this work better?
Yes, ma'am. I would urge the agency to rescind the delegation of litigation authority entirely, at least in most cases. Perhaps the agency could flip the current approach, which, as established now, allows the Commission to review only a handful of cases, really at the region's discretion. I would flip that model and have most of the cases, except for perhaps a certain type of case, go up to the Commission. And to that end, I would have the General Counsel also rescind his or her redelegation to the regional attorneys and have the General Counsel really making the call and being involved in every active litigation decision.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.